India may be getting better as a place to invest, but it remains one of the harder places in the world to exit, but it is manageable. The best exits are secondary sales planned well in advance, but it requires years of preparation. Distressed exits are a different story. Sellers can be squeezed. Residual liabilities can follow you long after you leave. Formal wind down is possible, but it takes time. The one principle that runs through all of this: start thinking about exit on the day you enter. Hello and welcome back to the Veyrah Law series. Throughout this series, we have talked about entering India, setting up, investing, operating. Today, we talk about something that most investors do not think about enough. At the start, getting out. India may be getting better as a place to invest, but it remains one of the harder places in the world to exit. Positive exits through an IPO or a secondary sale can be managed well when planned in advance. Distress exits are a different story. Sellers can be squeezed, valuations compressed, residual liabilities can follow you long after you leave, and statutory winding up of an Indian company is a process that can take years. As always, before we go further, a quick reminder. Please read the disclaimers carefully. Now, let us understand the landscape before we get to solutions. India's insolvency framework was transformed by the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the IBC, introduced in 2016. Before the IBC, winding up a company could take years or more. The IBC introduced time-bound resolution processes and a dedicated National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT, to oversee them. The improvement is real, but the IBC's primary objective is resolution of a business, keeping it alive, restructuring debt, finding a new owner. It is not designed for a clean wind down of a healthy company by its shareholders, whose purpose is simply complete. That said, there are standalone provisions in the IBC which permit voluntary liquidation of a company by the board of directors through the NCLT. But in most cases of a profitable exit by a foreign investor who wants to move on, a sale of the business is almost always better than a statutory wind-up. Let us look at the various exit options available. First is a secondary sale, the cleanest exit route in most circumstances. Sell the shares or the business to a new buyer, another strategic investor, a private equity fund, or a domestic Indian acquirer. An as-is-where-is sale planned well in advance with proper legal documentation and a clean due diligence process is the most efficient exit available in India. Next, an IPO, the golden exit for most investors. India's IPO market has been remarkably active. Strong retail participation, deep institutional demand, but an IPO requires a business of the right scale, the right governance standards, and the right timing. It cannot be rushed, and it requires a clean regulatory and financial history. Another method is a merger with a listed entity, an underexplored option. Merging your Indian business into a listed Indian company can provide an exit with consideration in listed shares, which can then be sold to the public market. Next, you have share buybacks, a useful tool for partial capital repatriation. An Indian company can buy back its own shares from investors, returning capital to the foreign parent without a full exit, subject of course to company law and RBI compliances. But it is a clean mechanism where applicable. Lastly, a formal winding up, the option of last resort. Even with no disputes, no litigation, and no creditors, a voluntary liquidation of an Indian company can take a year or more. All debts must be discharged, professional liquidators appointed, NCLT process is completed. Capital can then be repatriated. Do this correctly and it works, but with patience. Even then, it may not be the most tax-efficient method. Strike-off exists as a faster alternative, but it does not provide a clean exit for directors. Historic liabilities can still surface. Use only where the business has been genuinely dormant with no residual exposure. Now, let us look at how to approach a planned exit from the start. Our general recommendations for any investor covers entry structure, exit planning, and execution. First, match your entry structure to your exit plan. This is the most important point in this episode. Your entry structure should always reflect how you intend to exit. For short-term or one-off projects, consider a project office rather than a company. Project offices do not provide limited liability protection, but they are easier and faster to close down than a fully incorporated entity. For longer-term ventures, keep timeline in sight from day one. What does year 5 look like? Year 10? What are the exit triggers? The structure you build today should not create obstacles to the exit you want tomorrow. Second, invest through an intermediary vehicle. The cleaner the entry structure, the cleaner the exit. Investing through an offshore intermediary in a sophisticated jurisdiction like Singapore or the Netherlands gives you a significant advantage when things do not go according to plan. Disputes, exits, and restructuring can often be managed at the offshore level without triggering India's slow and unpredictable legal system. A share transfer between two foreign entities at the offshore holding level is frequently far cleaner than a direct transfer of the shares of an Indian company. That said, Indian tax implications do not disappear. GAR, treaty substance requirements, and capital gains rules remain fully relevant. The intermediary must have genuine commercial substance, not be just a letterbox. But when structured correctly, an offshore intermediary is one of the most powerful tools for preserving exit optionality and keeping your options open without a courtroom in sight. Third, plan your exit well in advance. Exits in India do not happen quickly. Buyer identification, due diligence, regulatory approvals, RBI pricing compliance, tax clearances, even a straightforward secondary sale takes months to complete. The investors who exit well start planning 12 to 24 months before they need to leave. Clean up the cap table, resolve any pending disputes, ensure financial statements are current, audit all regulatory compliance, clean up any pending exchange control compliances. A buyer who finds a clean, well-prepared business pays more and moves faster. Fourth, negotiate residual liabilities carefully. In any Indian exit, sale or merger, the question of residual liability is critical. Tax demands, regulatory notices, labor claims, these can surface after you have left. Negotiate caps on liability. Agree clear time limits on indemnity exposure. Consider seller insurance to cover known and unknown risks. And build an adequate retention fund to cover claims that arise post-closing. Do not exit assuming all liability ends at closing. In India, it often does not. Fifth, the IPO path requires early preparation. If an IPO is your target exit, the preparation begins years before listing. Indian stock exchanges, the NSE and BSE, have rigorous listing requirements. SEBI scrutinizes promoter history, related party transactions, financial disclosures, and governance standards thoroughly. Start cleaning up the business for listing long before you file. A well-prepared IPO in India's current market is the most valuable exit most investors will ever see. Lastly, if winding down, do it properly. If the decision is to close, not sell, do it properly. Discharge all debts, pay all statutory dues, settle all employee claims, close all regulatory registrations, appoint professional liquidators experienced in Indian winding up. This takes time. Budget for a year, often longer. Resist the temptation of a strike off. It is faster, but it does not clean the director's exposure. Historic liabilities can surface later and expose directors. A proper shareholder driven winding up through the statutory process is the only true clean exit for directors and shareholders alike. To sum up, exiting India is harder than entering, but it is manageable. If you plan ahead, structure wisely from the start, and execute with patience. The best exits are secondary sales planned well in advance. The best outcome for investors is an IPO, but it requires years of preparation. Formal wind down is possible, but it takes time. The one principle that runs through all of this: start thinking about exit on the day you enter. As the ancient proverb goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. For Indian exits, the equivalent is this: the best time to plan your exit was the day you enter. The second best time is today. We hope this episode has given you a better understanding on the landscape for exits from India. India is complex, India is challenging, but India is also one of the most attractive business destinations as on date. The investors who succeed are those who come prepared. If you found this video useful, please do share it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode.